So I'm recording now. So this is exercise 5.5. Now for those who plan to do exercise 5.5, they don't need you to interpret graphs here. They're literally just trying to get you to use Excel. Okay, so here's the first one. Excel, what's a pictogram? Pictogram is like a bar chart. The only difference is it has pictures. Here's an example. This is what a pictogram looks like. So that's an example. This is a pictogram of the example I'm getting you to make. So let's say you want to make something like this. So you guys know how to do a bar chart. Let's say you don't know how to do this one. Okay, so you want to list it. Why is a pictogram nice? Sometimes by looking at this, you can tell who ate the most apples. So the number of apples eaten per week, you can already see Paula ate the most apples, but specifically you can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or you can look at it and you can say it's definitely 10 apples. So how do you do that on Excel? I showed you in your notes there. You can follow it. Type in the data. So here we go. We've got our data. We've got John, Paula, Min, Serena, Tony, and Claire. I typed in the numbers. And this is all you do. Highlight them. So John, Claire, and every other graph that you're going to do is actually from the word insert. If you go to insert, this is what it looks like. You get a bar chart, and we want to do it on the side, so it looks like this. Now, this is what most students are familiar with, or people who do bar charts, they're familiar with this look. How do you turn this into this? It's the same idea. You right-click the bars, format data series, and under the bucket, you can choose a picture. Okay, so that changes the picture. You can choose whatever picture you want. But watch what happens when I pick the picture. Let's say I pick the same apple picture. See how the apples don't look the same? Okay, so one's stretched, one's not. So I gave a guidance on how do you fix that. It's just the next button. So in this button here, you write stack and scale with. That changes it into its individual components. See that? So it changes into its individual components. But notice that this apple looks nicer than this one. The reason why is because each bar has a gap. Now for the Year 11s, they know this, and Year 12s, you might know. What's the difference between a histogram and a bar chart? Have you guys learned that with Mr. Hiller? Year 12s?
Bar graphs, yes, we have.
What's the difference between a histogram and a bar chart? Because it's one of the things that will test you in the exam, if you plan to do the exam. Say it again? No, not the direction. It's more about the drawing of it.
Histograms connected.
Is that what you guys want to say? Very good. So bar charts are separated. You see that? Bar charts are separated, which is for categorical data. Histograms have to be connected. So the reason why these apples look squashed is because the bars are separated. So that means you can click on this bar symbol, and all you have to do is just make sure there's no gap. So if I change the gap, and I make it into a histogram, I say no gap. See all the bars? They're all touching each other. Or if I didn't do a picture, you can actually see it even clearer. If I just did solid, see there's no gap. So by putting a picture in it, that's why they look better. Okay, so that's only if you want to do a pictograph, that's how you do it. Now I already gave you a guide. If you follow the guide, you should be able to do those graphs there. But remember, 5.5 is not going to be useful for the exam, and 5.5 is not going to be useful unless you plan to use this later on. Some of the things I thought was cool was like, you know guys, when you guys play games and you guys have that radar graph, this one, where is it? This one. And then you choose your intelligence and strength and weakness and all that. That one you can actually create in Excel. So if you're interested in looking at that, I've put my notes 3 steps on how to get there. That's only if you're interested in doing something like that. Otherwise, all of this, your job is to be able to read each one. Now, bar charts are easy to read. I'm going to jump to the ones that I think students may not know. What's a bubble chart? Here we go. I'll show you what a bubble chart looks like, and then you can tell me what the difference is between each one. So, here's a bubble chart. For Year 12s, this is what a bubble chart looks like if you enter the data and you sketch it. Why do you think this bubble chart is useful? Because that's the kind of questions they ask you in the exam, so you have to describe. What makes this more useful than a scatter plot? Why can't I just do dot, 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 dot? Why is a bubble chart more useful than a scatter plot? Who wants to have a go? Why is yes, Billy? Yes, one is more clear, but the size of these dots is why we call it a bubble. What do these sizes mean? So what's those sizes? That tells me if I asked you which one has the most impact, if number of products, this is what you sell, and this is the number of sales, right? We can see that this number of products gave us the best sale because it has the biggest impact. Get me? Whereas if I just did dots and they're all equal dots, you can't tell which one has the biggest impact. Get me? So a bubble chart tells you two things. It doesn't just tell you what number of products and what sale it was. It's how much impact it can have. So it gives that extra detail. So that's the benefit of a bubble chart. Usually you look at a table and you can tell the percentages. Again, they can use bubble charts in the exam. So you have to know the bigger the bubbles, the more impact or more influence it has. So if you think about a share market, you want to look for the biggest bubble because that has the biggest share or biggest influence out of them all. Okay, so you can look at a trend at the same time you can look at the impact. That's the benefit of bubble chart. Macro charts. Let's see if you can read this one. All right, so this is something they might chuck in the exam. The skill is to read. So what's a macro chart? That tells you more information than just a bar chart. Let's say if I asked you right now, looking at this chart, and this is for both year 11 and 12s, if I asked you to interpret this, which one, so you got companies, you got like Acer, Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Which one sells the most overall for, say, phone? Which company does the best for phone? Which company does best for phone? So just looking at that chart, which one does the best? Acer. So you can see phone. We can see Acer takes up most of the area. Now notice the percentage on the side. Just because Dell is here, it doesn't mean Dell has 80%. It's the width of the bar. See, the width is, this tells me Dell takes up that much. So between 60 to 80 takes up 20%. Doesn't tell me that's 80%. So it tells you more information than just a bar chart because you can compare a couple of things. So if I asked you now, who's the best performing company? We can already see the least performing must be Lenovo. The two competitors could be Dell and Acer. We look across all domains and in the tech, that's the skill that you want to take out for year 12 exams. Yes, it's interpretation of a mecha. Now here's your last one. Radar charts, which most of you have intuition in reading. Area charts. This is the last one I want to talk about. You can learn how to do an area chart on Excel, which I've already given you notes for that. But just reading this one. What does an area chart do? I want you to see this. So in November, you can see that for phone sales of iPhone sales is blue, orange one is Samsung, and green ones are Google. Can you see, if we just looked at November, the width of each area, that's why it's called an area graph. The larger the area, the more impact. So, which one did better? iPhones did. But if we look over time, is it true that iPhone is consistently thicker or more area compared to the other companies? That's what you're doing in an area graph. Okay, it doesn't mean if it's on the top half, it doesn't mean that it's doing better. It just tells you that's Google. This is Samsung. This is now iPhone. So we can tell that Google doesn't do as many sales as Samsung, and Samsung and iPhone are relatively the same. See, why is an area graph nice? It's because if I just did dots, it's harder for you. If I just did dots, it's harder for you to interpret that extra piece of information. So each one has an extra dimension of information. That's why they do those area graphs. Okay? So I'm going to stop the video here. This was just an intro that you can actually do these type of graphs on Excel. So that means if you do exercise 5.5, so this is for year 11 and year 12, if you decide to do 5.5, the instructions on the first sheet that I gave to you, it will guide you on how to make them. That way you can answer the questions for exercise 5.5. Do you need it? No. not for the end of year exam, unless your future career may use these as presentations. So if your job is to present data and then convince shareholders on where to invest, then maybe learning these things are nice using Excel. Otherwise, for the most of you, I do think what's worthwhile doing, so I want you to practice interpreting. This is 5.5 of 2025. I just picked the questions that are interpreting graphs. Okay, I only picked a few, so you don't have to do a lot, but it gives you an introduction to what the students generally have to do at the end of year when it comes to foundation mathematics. Is the skill, can you logically read a graph and interpret and answer it correctly? So there's multiple choice, and there's a short answer question. Then I'll go, and I also printed the answers on the very back page. You can actually look at the percentages of students who do well and don't do well. Here's an example. So that question that you guys who picked up C and D, here's the percentage difference last year. At the very end, if you flip to the back page, this is what it was. Last year, 32% of students got it right, but 67% chose C. That's the most common, because they're reading what I just said. What is the most obvious? They choose the lowest, so they're not reading the question properly. The second one, if you do it, 36% got the correct answer. So these first two shows you, if you can do that, you're already above that 36% of kids. 1/3 of that population, you're better. This is what I'm trying to say. It is very doable to do better at the end of year compared to the state. Okay, so I hope that over this year, I'm going to convince most of you that if you plan to do a VC, not just to get a great, like a certificate, but if you think of getting a scored one, this is a good subject for it. And I'll explain to the year 12s what I explained to the year 11s, but it's, you guys got 2 years to actually really make this possible, and I really believe it. Okay, whereas the year 12s, you guys got this 1 year. I do think it is worthwhile, but again, whatever your goals are, that's what I'm going to find out this session. Whatever your goals are, I'm here to support. Cool? All right, I'm going to stop the video there. So that's the goal for today. If you're working on, if you're year 11s, you got your 3 goals, you can work on, what do year 11s can do? You can do 5.5 if you want. Oh, you can't see it. You can do 5.5, exam questions, or any work before. Okay, year 12s, you can do 5.5, or you can do the exam questions. Okay, that way, both of those I will consider as a skill to tick off at 5.5, and then I consider that as a pass for that skill. Okay? You can now get water. All right, I'm going to stop the video.